Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'll be reviewing The Rental. So The Rental is a horror thriller film that is about two couples that decide they want to take a quick little weekend vacation to celebrate a business venture, and things get a little bit crazy and things get a little off the rails. So I'm sure you've heard this type of film before. It's a very familiar premise, but I think the simplistic nature of it, it's really executed well. It's a movie that builds up tension. It's constantly building tension from the very first scene all the way to the end. And I do like that it does work on those levels. I didn't think any of the performances were especially standout. Dan Stevens is one of my favorite actors. He's been in one of my favorite horror thriller films, The Guest. But this is another solid addition to his catalog. Alison, Brie, who plays the wife of Dan Stevens' character in this film, also does a pretty solid job. She definitely plays someone who's horrified. She plays that really scared character really well. But these characters aren't given a ton to do. The movie does move at a kind of slow pace, in my opinion. It takes about an hour for it to really get going, and it's only just under an hour and a half long, I believe. So it definitely is a slower build, but I do think that they're able to ratchet up that tension throughout the first two acts of the film, so the slow nature of it didn't necessarily bother me. And speaking of tension, I do like that the way that the film is written, it builds tension in different ways. So obviously, you know, it being a horror thriller film, that something bad's going to happen. They give little seeds of that. You're kind of seeing what's happening as it's unraveling. You're figuring that out. There's a lot of interpersonal tension that's happening between the characters that are on screen. So that adds another element to it. And it kind of, in a way, covers up some of the dumb things the characters do. You always need to find a way in horror movies to have the characters make bad decisions. Otherwise, the movie would really work because people would just leave, or they would just call the police, and that would be the end of the story. But, you know, they're able to build these interpersonal connections that make it impossible for them to kind of get out of this situation. And while I did mention the writing of it, this actually is the directorial debut of Dave Franco, who you obviously know from other films, mostly comedy films, and is the husband of Alison, Brie, so you have a bit of connection there. So I definitely think it was a solid outing for his first foray into directing. Another thing that builds the atmosphere of this movie is the overall setting. You have this kind of coastal mansion. It's very misty, very dark. It feels very secluded, very reminiscent of other horror movies that put the characters out in a far remote location. And the score also helps build some of the tension. Some of the best scores in film, in my opinion, are from thriller horror movies, and this is another solid one here. Now, one thing I will say is while the movie does, have some quality elements to it, it becomes pretty predictable for me, in my opinion. Maybe if I've seen a lot of horror movies, or if you've seen a lot of horror movies, you kind of know where it's going to go. You kind of understand where the misdirections are going to be, kind of the direction of everything that's happening. And it is very simple. If you're trying to get a lot of depth and a lot of layers to this movie, they're not really there like some of the more modern horror films. But I think it executes itself on that classic level. So real quick, I want to talk about the ending of the film. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I would just, end it here, skip over to see my score. But I really wanted to talk about the actual ending and the villain, if you will, of the movie. I really liked it. To be honest with you, I didn't know how I felt about it when I first watched it, but I do like it. It leaves this ambiguous thing happening. You're seeing that this villain isn't just someone that's connected to him. You don't get a gotcha moment. It doesn't feel like a big twist in everything that's happening. It's just some guy that likes to kill people when he sets up these cameras in these rental houses. And that's kind of horrifying on its face. The idea of being someone who goes to rent a house and someone's just watching you and they're going to kill you and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't know who they are, why they're doing it. So I did like that, but I can understand why people may be a little disappointed. It doesn't feel as satisfying of an ending, having it kind of just be like, well, they all died and it was just some guy that likes to kill people. So, I could see why you wouldn't be satisfied with that, but I personally think it worked well. So if I were to rate this movie, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a really solid directorial debut, a nice little horror thriller film that works on those classic ideas of isolation, being watched, the mystery of someone hunting you. So this film is actually coming out this Friday, so if you check it out, let me know what you think about it. How does it rate for other recent horror films for you? What did you think about some of the performances? We have some really solid actors here. And what did you feel about this first directorial debut from Dave Franco? You interested to see more from him moving forward? So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.